lie. It was really hard to get myself to watch Roma. I sat down right after it came out on Netflix to try and watch it for lunch, and I finished my lunch before the credits ended. The credits are very slow, without much reward, and so I was like, this is taking too long. It's a little bit too slow of a burn, I'd say, for the first half of the movie. The final thing that really got me to check it out, though, was its awards situation, that it's just winning award after award after award. It has momentum, and I imagine more and more people will be like, okay, I gotta watch it, right? Or maybe you'll be just on the edge like I was, and here I am to give you that last push to tell you that you should indeed watch it. But it's gonna be tough. You got to know that going in, because even once I started Roma, it was hard to finish it. I took, in fact, several breaks. But to the movie's credit, I did watch it in a single day because the story did hook me. And you know what? It wasn't even so much the story as I wanted to see what Cuarón was doing. He's all over this, and in more ways than just the usual, being the director and the filmmaker situation, as you're about to find out. But he seemed in control, even if I felt I didn't love what he was doing. So out of respect for him as an artist, I was like, well, let me see what you've got. And I also wanted to see more of his outstanding black and white cinematography. Cinematography made all the more impressive because Cuarón has never shot a movie before. He's dabbled in cinematography before, but wow. Clearly, just being around such wonderful cinematographers throughout his career has really rubbed off on the guy. It's so good. It's so good. Cinematography is amazing. And on that note, Roma is an intensely personal film for Cuarón. So much so that I would wager that watching Roma is only half of the experience that he's put together here. You need to know Cuarón's personal story behind the film, the extraordinary, almost unbelievable efforts that he went through to recreate his childhood, how and why he chose his cast, especially his lead actress. And on top of all that, the history of Mexico at the time, not just politically, but also economically, as well as race relations. And I can imagine Alfonso Cuarón talking to awards voters and explaining all of that. What an awards campaign. I imagine it is captivating, because I had a great time reading about it during the movie and afterwards, because I was like, how is this autobiographical? I'd heard a little bit about that. The movie just wasn't answering these questions for me, so I had to go and find out. Although Cuarón, as all movies do during awards season, is going to awards voters and has, I am sure, an amazing presentation. And that's why it's doing so well during awards season. A lot of awards voters know stuff that you do not, and most people who watch this movie will not know. But I'm here to fix that for you. I have links down below to 2 articles that I feel do the trick, and you can either read them before or after you watch the movie. It's up to you what kind of experience you want to have. I highly recommend you read them before you watch the movie. I think you'll have a much better time and be able to get through it in one sitting, perhaps even enthusiastically so. But either way, again, this is more of a package situation than just a movie. Now, I personally feel that a film should stand on its own, and I do think that Cuarón could have done a better job hinting at the bigger picture in the film in itself. I don't think it needs to have all this additional reading material. I think that lots of historical films have been able to allude to the bigger picture within the context of the film. I think his strokes in Roma are too broad, perhaps because he's too close to the material. It actually happened to him and his loved ones, so he automatically knows what he's looking at, and also he can fill in the blanks, whereas we, who have no attachment to this material, cannot do that. This is why filmmaking is supposed to be a team effort, so somebody can catch these things and be like, Cuarón, you're too close to the material. No one else is going to get this. And it's why producers never do directors any favors. It's interesting to have this conversation after talking about M. Night Shyamalan on Movie Math yesterday. Producers don't do their directors any favors by giving them total creative freedom. That said, though, Roma still has an awful lot going for it. And when I wasn't being like, what else is going on here, Cuarón, and furiously researching the movie, during breaks, I did appreciate it from the perspective of what I do know going into the film, and that's the history of cinema and the feminist movement. Now, on that first point, the history of cinema, it is brilliant and impressive, both from a creative perspective and a business standpoint. I mean, it's so savvy when it comes to awards season. I can't believe it. But Cuarón has mimicked very, very well French New Wave cinema, and famous Italian black and white films like Federico Fellini's 8½. Again, it's all down to the black and white cinematography. Absolutely stunning. In fact, I'm still thinking about it. That's what stuck with me the most about the movie. 1960s Mexico depicted so sharply, so cleanly, and so vibrantly that it just seems so alive. I would also say on a side note that I thought that Cuarón had an interesting directing style, and it was a little absurdist as well, which I think not only points to these movements in film, French New Wave cinema and Italian black and white cinema, but there was a tad of Wes Anderson in there too. It's some just really ironic moments that really just got you. I don't want to give any of them away, but that also kind of kept me hooked, and there were more of those as the film went along. But also, movies even factor into Roma's story itself, as the characters go to the movies frequently, although a lot of times not to actually watch the movie. And in doing so, they showcase some of the truly beautiful movie houses that were the norm in the mid-20th century. There's one in particular with the way the light from the projector lights up this movie theater, and our characters that were with her in the back, so you can see the whole thing. It's just gorgeous. I loved it so much. And there's even a clip in the film from the 1960 movie Maroon, which the characters go to see, which instantly brings to mind when I was watching it, Cuarón's Gravity. And sure enough, again, I took a break. I was like, why is this in here? Let me go look. This is one of the problems with watching a movie on Netflix, because you can do this. You can't do it in a theater. Although, again, as I said, it did add to my enjoyment of the film. This is almost should be like a pop-up movie where you can go click on stuff while you're watching it. Because sure enough, it turns out that Marooned was one of Cuarón's childhood favorite films that actually inspired him to make the 2013 Oscar-winning movie. And interestingly, Marooned won an Oscar for Best Visual Effects back in 1969, as did Gravity so many years later. But Cuarón didn't just include Marooned as an homage, but also in the movie in Roma, we see two separate children at separate times, one middle class and one very poor, and that's reflected in their environments and their astronaut costumes, adrift. And I think that that's a metaphor for how adrift and alone we all feel so often in life, and how it means so much when someone finally, another human, is able to make connection with us in the vast darkness. I think that, the cold darkness of space, or also you could argue life. So I liked that element. The film also touches on how fate decides so much for us just by birth, such as race and economic status, and how especially in the late 1960s, all over the world, but here in Mexico, that those elements define one's life in inescapable ways. As for the feminism bit, the ending of this film reminded me an awful lot of the ending of Big Little Lies, even down to the beach. And it's interesting to see Hollywood transition from these stories of female survival to ones of female empowerment. Equally important. And I'd also like to point out that this fiercely feminist film is written and directed by a man, proving that gender lines, or any lines really, should not be drawn too harshly in Hollywood as it continues to diversify. Hollywood continues to diversify in front of and behind the camera and the stories that it's telling. And what I mean by that is I think it would be dangerous to start saying who can tell what stories. I think what's important is just to get the stories out there. And as long as there's diversity in other films and in other ways, I don't think that we want to, divide ourselves up, because you would have been denied this film. Now, also, I wonder how people will react to the fact that it does not seem to start out as a feminist film whatsoever, but sure turns into one. All right, finally, do I think that Roma deserves all the awards that it's getting? I think it deserves to be nominated for sure. And the more I think about Roma, and the more I explore it, both actually researching it and just mulling it over, the more it does impress me. But again, I personally feel that a film should stand on its own, and Cuarón is way too close to the material. Roma is an impressive, intriguing film, but it's not a perfect film, and in fact, it has many, many flaws, obviously so. Still, if you read the articles I've put down below in the video description, I do believe that it is worth your time, especially since for most of you, you can watch it for free as part of your Netflix subscription. I suggest a lazy afternoon. That's when I started it, as the perfect time. And you should just force yourself to keep watching. Trust me, it's going to pick up. And again, if you read these articles, I think you'll enjoy it more. And by the end, I think that you will agree that it was time well spent, especially if you're a cinephile, or if you're interested in any of the elements that I mentioned here. So that's my review of Roma. I'm curious to hear your own thoughts down below. Have you seen it? If not, why not? What is it going to take to get you to watch it? And also, please, no spoilers. In the second half of the movie in particular, there are some very good surprises, and that does a lot to help the second act. So don't ruin that for anyone. They're going to need it if they're going to get through the movie. All right, so again, that's my review. Share those thoughts down below. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.